So what happens is that the overturning of deeply held implicit assumptions can lead to rude awakening or shock or mind fuckery or paradigm shift or a recontextualization. I've talked about all these concepts in the past. I have an episode about mind fuckery called The Topic of Mind Fuckery. I have an episode about paradigm shifts, which is called How Paradigms Work. I have an episode about understanding recontextualization. I've talked about rude awakenings a lot. Surprises. So this is how it works. To see reality in a radically different way that expands your own self-imposed limits. This is one of the most amazing features of the mind and of consciousness. You see, what people take for granted, especially materialists, because they just assume a material reality is, they just assume that reality just is how it is, and therefore how we think about it isn't a big deal. That's true if reality is just an objective material system, but it's not. As I've talked about elsewhere, reality is an infinite mind. An infinite mind, when it imagines certain limits, those limits become its reality. And so what's so cool about self-actualizing and spirituality is that you can remove what you previously thought were physical objective limits. What you thought was physics, you can remove those limits just by changing how you see yourself and reality. That's what's so amazing about this work. That's what makes this work so much more powerful than normies assume, than scientists assume, right? It's possible to actually go underneath the physics of reality. Not in all situations. In certain situations, it's possible to do that. And then it's possible to realize incredible things that would otherwise seem crazy and impossible. And so, in fact, the most advanced spiritual truths are inaccessible to most human minds simply because fundamental assumptions have not been questioned deeply enough. Right? Like, most people assume that they're going to die, and they don't understand that death is an assumption. And when you tell them, hey, death is an assumption you hold, they'll say, no, Leo, you're crazy. That's crazy talk. That's some woo stuff. That's unscientific. No, it's not unscientific. It's just that you need to go underneath fucking science. You need to question science so deeply that you deconstruct science, and then you even deconstruct death. And you deconstruct physics, of course. But this seems so outlandish and so crazy to the ordinary mind, because the ordinary mind is not used to questioning this deeply and take for granted the significance of holding these sorts of assumptions. It treats assumptions as some sort of minor stuff, like, little peanuts. It's not peanuts. Your death is not peanuts. So a lot of the things that I talk about sometimes rub people the wrong way, and people think that I'm crazy or a cult leader or something, because they assume that what I'm talking about is some sort of belief system that I hold or some sort of ideology that I'm trying to indoctrinate you into. But that's not what this work is about. What this work is about is questioning extremely deeply to the point where then you have crazy epiphanies and realizations that the ordinary mind cannot fathom. The ordinary mind can't see some of these advanced things that I'm talking about, and therefore, from its perspective, the ordinary mind must somehow explain this and make sense of what I'm talking about, and the way it does that is by saying, oh, it's some sort of new age bullshit or wishful thinking, or it's an ideology, or it's a cult, or it's just crazy.